It's been a week. It's been a week since we've discussed what we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Uh, the so I was told to give an update and tell you that I saw Bob Dylan. I saw him. He's 83 years old. He put on a pretty good show. Can't really sing anymore. It's kind of impossible for him because he's 83. He kind of talked the whole time, but I liked it. It was a great time. Uh, I would like him doing anything. Really, I'm just that big of a fan. Uh, But yeah, it was a good time. Nothing really happened to me all that much this week. I just kind of existed. What did you do?
So we're gonna say. So we were gonna originally talk about, and yeah, of course, welcome to Modern Romance, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna talk about love and anything involving love. This is not necessarily talking about like love-ish, but it does constitute involving love, as of everything does. Um, so originally, I wanted to talk about like this episode was gonna be about talking about St. Patrick's Day, cold approach and all that kind of stuff. Talking about the stories, the wacky adventures of Zubair Ali Shah. Um, but I think we have more intriguing things to talk about. Let's just say that I did what I did. Met some chicks. It just let's say nothing really came out of that. It just it could always be saved for another day. I put the effort. I tried, but I always fall short. It is what it is. Didn't mean I didn't get Instagrams and numbers, but it just.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of also frustrated myself because the Monday when it was actually St. Patrick's Day, I was planning to go out, but let's just say that work life just made me very tired to go out, or just I had to also review stupid fucking wrestling that day. Like I came home and then I had to review wrestling. Thankfully, Raw was on earlier that day because they're doing this whole UK tour or European tour where they're able to broadcast live with the help of Netflix, and you can see the show early, all that kind of shit, which makes it easier. It's also easy, it's kind of cool seeing the wrestling during work.
You
Get it.
also don't like have to review it.
Well, it's part of my. Well, aside from modern romance, it's part of the content that people actually want to look to watch for me for. So it's one of my type of essence. It's my presence in the YouTube world.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I did that. And yeah, St. Patrick. Let's just say I enjoyed my St. Patrick's Day better last year than this year. But we'll wait till the next video to talk about that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyways, today we have a big topic because it is a trending topic. We're gonna talk about a new Netflix show, which is not necessarily an American show, but it has taken the world by storm for reasons, but we're gonna get to them. A show called Adolescence. I found out about this show because of Emery, and I think this is definitely something that Emery is very passionate to talk about, and I'm even passionate about it because of him, because of just the whole circumstance of what people are associating the show with, and yeah, I think Emery, you want to take on the road right now?
Sure. Adolescence. It's a new 4-part miniseries that's on Netflix right now. I really enjoyed it a lot, not only because of what it had to say and because of the story, but because it was a really well made, well put together series. I think if you took the plot out of it, you took everything else out of it, you would still have a great series because of just how technically brilliant it is. Every single episode is pretty much unedited. There are no cuts. It's all done in one take. They had to get everything perfect. All the actors had to be at the exact right place at the exact right time, say the exact lines, and know everything that was going to happen for an hour plus every episode. And my mind was just blown watching it the entire time, just thinking, there's a whole scene in episode 2 that takes place in a school, and they've got like hundreds of extras just on the screen, and they have to coordinate getting this line, go here and do this. And my brain was just broken thinking about how fucking hard it would be to do that and not fuck up ever, and to have it completely go right every single time. There's a scene, I believe, I think it's the end of that episode as well.
Episode 4.
No, at the end of episode 2, where you see the camera moving along, someone runs in behind it attaches it to a drone, and then it flies across the fucking city and goes to the fucking dad, and you get like a zoom in of him. I was fucking blown away by that. Episode 4 as well, like you had mentioned, they had attached the car or the camera to the front of the car while they were driving to get a really nice little scene of them all talking together. It was very, just again, technically brilliant. The show is about a 13-year-old boy who stabs a girl to death because he was influenced by the internet. Now, that doesn't, I don't think the show ever makes the point that that's the only reason that he stabbed her. The kid's obviously very fucked up. Once you watch the show, he's very mentally unstable. But I think the idea that it was getting at was that, yes, people are negatively affected by their algorithm. They're negatively affected by things they hear online. And it gives them a certain lens that they view women through, or other fucking, just anybody. It gives you a certain lens that you look at the world through, and a negative lens can lead to you doing all sorts of fucked up things. And it's also kind of specifically about it affecting young teenagers. Like, just the way their minds are already fucking, very malleable, very easily influenced. And then they have these cell phones that they put their whole fucking life into. And it just makes them think fucked up shit. And, there was one or two lines that I thought might have been a little bit too on the nose. But overall, I thought it was a really well put together show. And I kind of want to watch it again. I liked it that much. I really kind of want to see it a second time.
I guess I'll give my point of view. I do agree myself. The show, well, the cinematography was actually very good. It was very good for the show. Also, I will say props to the kid actor. The kid actor.
Yeah.
I believe this was his first. This was his first acting gig, and
yeah. And to be able to do that whole third episode, the whole thing is just him talking to his therapist, and the fact that he's like 13 years old and didn't fuck up once is crazy.
Yeah. What I learned is that, and this is something I think that's pretty cool about the UK, is that they actually get actors and actresses of the actual age. They don't really go to the whole America, which I think that I get why America does that. Why we hire, let's say, a teenage role and give it to like a young adult. I think there's more to do. And let's be honest here, like when I was let's say when I was younger, like I was watching like these preteen type of shows, the tween shows, right? Like the tween shows that were at the time, like if you saw like what shows like Lizzie McGuire, Even Stevens, that's basically the shows that were on Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, even shows like Victorious, iCarly, Drake and Josh, or whatever, when you see those shows and they did stuff like, that's, let's say, a teenager, like they're doing revealing stuff, you can't have a teenager like showcase their bodies with their actual age. That's why the beauty of them being young adults, they were able to do certain things, that gave them the excuse for, if you're a tween, you could do some. It even shows like Boy Meets World, for example. Imagine if Topanga, her actual age was freaking, like, again, the actual age, and they were doing certain things that could be like constitute as freaking pedophilia or like child porn, essentially. So, but again, the beauty, well, I will say the beauty of the UK is there again, you have people that actually represents the age. And that was with this 13-year-old kid. Sadly, I don't remember the actor's name, but he played the character Jamie. Great actor, great child actor. I hope nothing but the best for him and success. I think the guy really, the kid was definitely. It's not even just him; it's definitely the entire show. I thought the acting was great, and everyone on the show great. They acted well. I'm not saying this was like an entertaining. Like, this is not something like in terms of like you're gonna laugh at this show necessarily. You're gonna like just like, wow, like this is
right.
Deep,
I agree, but surprisingly, there were a few moments that were pretty funny, I thought.
Oh, you think? You think? I think one certain scene that I laughed or was okay. One scene that was unintentionally funny to me was how in episode 3 the therapist reacted with the sandwich. I would say like after like Jamie left, like, oh, don't you like me, whatever, and I don't know. It seems like to me was unnecessary. Like was unintentionally funny. Like the accents, certain people with the
Oh,
accents.
I got you. Yeah,
But
the whole
but
thing.
not just that, but also I would say you know what, when you saw like one of the, was it the character Katie's which again, the beauty of this show is the person who got killed, Katie, right? The she was not really at the in the show, but her presence was felt throughout the show. You know, her friend who like punched like the one of Jamie's friends. Like I guess you could say that was a funny moment. I don't know.
The
Even though it's
moment that sticks out for me being the funniest is the dad not understanding how the internet works. Like the detective.
oh yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny. Uh,
Mm,
there were a couple of moments,
mm,
just kind of little moments like that, where they kind of had little jokes in it. I kind of felt kind of
mm.
lightened the mood a couple of times. The yeah, kind of the ineptitude of the people. There
Yeah.
was a really, really excellent line in the 4th episode. There's this really well written moment. And I guess that we're going into spoilers. I mean, it's kind of hard to spoil this. It kind of goes exactly how you would expect. It's just kind of seeing the
Yeah.
effect that this kid's um this crime has on his family and everybody else. It's there's not really you wouldn't really say there's like a story to it. You just kind of
Mhm.
see what happens to everybody after he does something fucked up.
Yeah.
And there's a really good scene where the dad and the mom are talking at the end, and their daughter's like really like a really nice person and is like offering to do things for them to make them feel better. And then the dad says, he says, "How did we make her?" And the mom says, "The same way we made him." And that shit fucked me up, man.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that too fucking that's too much. Like the ending of that show had me bawling like a baby. Like it was fucking sad. It's very well put together. And there
Oh, so
was
you're
also
saying like, I just realized that you think that's kind of like why, you, because this whole show, again, this is why we're also going to talk about it, like the whole idea of toxic masculinity and all the insult terms or whatever that was on this show. You think that's why, like, if you think that's why he did what he did, because of the lack of masculinity, because again, the same way they treated the child, like again, they raised her and they raised him the same way, but rather than not like differently because of their gender. Like, do you think that played a big role?
I think that the issue for why someone ends up like that a lot of the time is lack of positive male role models, and then they go and they try to find a positive male role model elsewhere, and they end up finding someone fucked up to emulate. um
Mhm.
it didn't really show a whole lot of the relationship between the boy and his dad before the crime happened, so you don't
Yeah.
really get to see how he was as a parent in that way. But from what you can tell, it just seemed like a dad that worked a lot, wasn't really around, wasn't really in his life all that much. Not that he was a bad guy, but that he was always busy and always putting work first. And the kid went elsewhere to find a male role model. And he went online and he found these men that were saying some fucked up shit and doing fucked up things. And I'll say, the show reminded me a lot of the Elliot Rodger thing. When I was watching it, it kind of had a similar vibe of just that rage of like not really knowing who to actually be angry at, it seemed, and to like take it out on the wrong people and to be influenced by the wrong things.
You know what
And
the
to this,
show? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Continue.
I was just saying that I think, and I also think that they showed that the kid was really fucked in the head as well. There's a few scenes
Yeah.
in episode 3 where he just kind of snaps at the therapist and tries to intimidate her and shit,
Yeah.
which kind of just shows his willingness uh to lash out at women, and also just shows how fucked in the head he is in general, because he's acting violent and crazy at age 13, screaming like that.
Yeah. One thing that I say, like this movie did remind me also of the 2007 Halloween remake, because it showed like that was the movie where they gave us actually a backstory of Michael Myers, uh, but obviously people didn't like that film. But at least it did give like it did give something different, which I give credit to at as of that movie. But I would say this film way better. Obviously because the
Yeah.
acting is so much better, and it's makes sense, and you don't it's just something actually was intriguing to care for. Than like I guess the 2007 Halloween remake. I just think that that movie is just straight up trash, made trash. It's let's just say this show is what that movie wish it was. Okay, this that movie can't even comparison to this show. This show, great acting, uh, just powerful. Powerful. People actually acted their ass off, and the cinematography was even fantastic. So you can't even compare. Like this is definitely something like what a great miniseries this was. This was really good. Not saying this was in terms of entertaining. Like I would like something that I would pop on to enjoy, to like just for the sake of it. Because I'm that type of guy who likes to watch fun loving shows. That I can just kick back on the couch and just watch and enjoy, laugh my ass off. Something like a Drake and Josh, maybe something like or something like even a Cobra Kai, as in terms of a famous Netflix show. But at the end of the day, if you want to like just hey, let me just watch something just to feel something. This definitely gives you feeling. This has that feeling of the show. It gives you feeling, gives you something like to even learn about. Even
Yeah.
it's a thing. It's a thought productive, thought productive show. It's a definitely show that it makes you think, makes you wonder, makes you question things. And I think that's also like why a lot of people right now are basically questioning. They're even looking to talk about this movie because like to start this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I do want to make a comment and say that the guy who plays the dad in the show, he was one of the creators and one of the writers for it.
Oh
And he
really?
said that he had created it because there's an epidemic of boys stabbing girls in Great Britain. Now,
Really?
he doesn't acknowledge the fact the reason that knife crime has gone up in Great Britain is because of the influx of Islamic people coming in. There is
Shit.
a problem with illegal immigration in Britain, and these people from this culture that don't like them drive cars into crowds of people and they have to put fucking barriers up. They stab people and they do fucked up things. Now, I know what you're going to say. Not all Muslims, fine. I agree. But it's enough to be a problem, and it's because of their mentality and the things that they believe coming over. It's not necessarily always an incel thing. I'm not saying that incel stuff is good. Obviously, I think it's bad. I think it has a negative effect on people. And clearly, you look at Elliot Rodger, and it does kind of have a kind of it appeals to a certain kind of man that will do crazy things. I agree with all of that. However, uh, the problem in Britain, it's a little bit more than just Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is a problem, but not nearly as much of a problem as Islam in Britain, which kind of fuels a lot of these issues and a lot of these incidents when you're talking about knife crime. Now, that's not all of it. There's a lot of gang stuff in Britain, too. A lot of gangs have knives. A lot of just common criminals have knives. Shit, if you look at the knives that they have in Great Britain, it's not the knives that they have here. It's not like the fucking, kitchen knives and shit. These people are walking around with like machetes that have like fucking serrated edges on it. It's fucking absurd the shit that they kill each other with over there. So it's again, I that's the one criticism I'll have of the show is he was talking about, well, there's an epidemic of knife crime. There certainly is, but there's a different reason for that than the incel thing. At least as far as Great Britain goes.
So I would understand. So I would agree with the whole like illegal immigration because that happens like that sort of issue goes on, especially here in America. But like, what? So I'm kind of confused because I did not know this, and I'm actually intrigued to know. Obviously, radical Islamic terrorism is a big issue. I
Yeah.
totally agree, right? But like, what makes it like that's necessarily like an Islam thing? How do you know that? If I can ask.
Well, it's written in the book, in the Quran, in all of it. Talks about getting rid of the infidel, killing the apostate, and all of that. And a lot of Britain has just been, I don't want to say taken over, but a lot of areas of towns have just become completely just Muslim owned and Muslim everything. And they fucking have all of these stores that are their own stores, and they run shit the way they want to run it. And it's just not compatible with the West. It's just the fucking truth. Those ideas are bad, and those ideas will infect the West if you fucking let them. And that's just kind of what's happening over there. Their
I
government doesn't care to crack down on it. Their government doesn't care to fucking do anything to help their fucking people with that shit. It's not good. And it just, again, it causes violence. It causes all sorts of things. That thing I was saying earlier about the barriers, that's not a joke. There was a whole fucking epidemic of Muslims that would get in their cars and fucking run their cars into crowds of people in Britain that were just fucking standing on the sidewalk and doing shit. And they had to put barriers up, like concrete fucking like poles, so they wouldn't drive their fucking cars into crowds of people. Like, it was a genuine thing. And I'm not saying the answer is to completely fuck every Muslim over or anything like that. I don't believe in that. I believe that you should have the freedom to believe whatever you want, the freedom of religion or whatever. But you should be careful about how many fucking people of different, completely different ideas that you're just letting come through. And it's just like, if you read the Quran, it says once you get to 20% capacity, that's when you start fucking holy war. And I don't know. It's like, I wouldn't chance that personally. But then again, it's like, I also understand where the fucking liberals are coming from sometimes, where it's like, you know, these people need help. But at the same time, I also understand where the fucking conservatives are coming from, where it's like, we should help our people. We don't need to be helping every single person on the face of the planet. So I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on a lot of things, but I genuinely think that, like, if you want to solve this knife crime problem, the problem of stabbings and all of that, you would focus more on the illegal immigration that's happening in Britain, more on the Islamization of Britain, and all of the shit that's happening there with that fucking religion. And you would stop focusing. I mean, I'm not saying to stop focusing on the incel stuff, but you would understand that that is one thing that is a smaller issue when compared to this fucking more massive thing that's happening over there. And if you look at the person that this show was inspired by, it was a Muslim guy. Like, it was. So it's just like, that's the problem. Like, fucking, that is the issue. And it's almost like they didn't want to look at the issue. They just kind of shrugged it off. And that's just not going to solve anything. Now, I might be putting my foot in my mouth when I said it was based on a Muslim guy. I just saw the picture of the guy that it was based on, and that was my assumption. He might have been a Sikh, Hindu, Buddhist. I don't know what he was, but that just gets away from my original point, which is the knife crime problem is more than just a man problem. It's an idea problem. It's a religion problem. It's a bigger problem than it was.
So technically, you're saying that this movie should basically been like kind of like this. If you think about it, this movie should have been basically a look through of Islamic terrorism and the knife crimes issue in UK, but they decided to.
If I was the one making it, that's how I would have done it. I would have made it about that. But again, I like what they made. I think that the product was good. I think it was very well made. I liked the story. It was very well written, very emotional, and it touches on an issue that I think is a real issue, but it doesn't get to the heart of the actual problem they were trying
in
to
the real world.
go with.
Yeah, like, the real world, real world issue. So here's what I know. Apparently, this was based on a real life story, but the kid was black. But but
I'm pretty sure he was a Muslim guy, but I might be incorrect about that.
Okay, well, from what I know, swapped the race of the child where it instead. So again, I do think like maybe one of the reasons why they didn't mention if the kid was Muslim, it is Netflix after all. They are kind of like a wokey type of, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's probably why. So that's the sad reality of like Netflix. They're gonna be kind of woke in terms of things what they can fly. Um,
Yeah, it's just kind of the nature of the thing. I don't really know a whole lot about Netflix. I don't watch a whole lot of Netflix products, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have kind of a woke slant to them.
yeah, they do. Um, so what I will say in terms of like what you said about the issue with Islamic terror, or just basically the knife killing issue in Islam. So I think this is definitely the UK's fault. I'm going to tell you why this is UK's fault for like even allowing this. One, you know, going back to like a lot of liberal, the UK's full of a lot of liberals.
Hmm.
They're very impactful. Like, we got to stop Islamic terrorism. Like, we got to stop that. They'll fucking say, they'll a lot of UK people, they'll allow that shit. They're gonna be like, oh, it's like Islamophobia. Like we gotta stop dealing with Islamic phobia and all that kind of shit. They'll act like they're so just great human beings, but they'll endorse that shit, right? And
Yeah.
not just that, it is true that if you really think about it in terms of like what is a Western society, what is a Western state, like, or just Western country in general, where that has kind of been like overpopulated with like a bunch of Muslims or just brown people, it is the UK. Like if anything, it's practically Pakistan or India compared to like the United States. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, which I totally agree. After all, like, um, Great Britain, their like national dish is literally chicken tikka masala. So, what does that tell you? Like, basically, like the Indians are taking over. They're taking back they're taking back what was theirs supposedly, or they're trying to take over after Great Britain take their goods supposedly, right? But
Right.
look how's that helping you? You're getting people killed, and supposedly now that Emery has told me, like apparently that's what a lot of people who are Muslim they're doing that. Then like wow, obviously I have to take a look into that, because yeah, but I mean, I'm not gonna act like that. I'm not surprised because unfortunately, we do have to understand that radical Islamic terrorism is an issue. It is sadly still an issue till this day, and we really gotta, you know, change that because it makes guys like me, who is a Muslim, look bad, right? And it's not good. I don't want people to die. Okay. But going back to this show, I though what did happen, right? So let's talk about what did happen, though. I did take notes to talk about what happened on each episode. Would you be okay for me doing that? I guess
Go
if you,
ahead.
yeah. So let's go. Like this is basically a spoiler type of show, and also I'm gonna give definitely my thoughts of or even your thoughts of certain things of the show that supposedly people are talking about, and we'll talk about it. Um, so here's like this is my recap of each episode. Episode one. Episode one investigates a character named Jamie, who is the 13-year-old kid who's in suspicion of murder. The parents insist that he's a good kid, but evidence showed that he in fact did kill the child who is now murdered, named Katie. Uh, it's definitely something like it's quite something like it's rare that nowadays you would see something that's it's not necessarily a cliffhanger, but it's also kind of something where it's not like, oh, ooh, what a twist, which a lot of TV shows try to do to make you intrigued, which I have no problem with. What's a twist? I have no problem with something like that. You know what I mean? It just you gotta be obviously like it's gotta be well done, makes sense. You know,
Right.
normally when you have situations like this, it's not like always a twist, so it's kind of realistic.
Right. I
Where
really thought that they were gonna have a whole thing where he didn't actually do it. That's what my thought was it was gonna be like he was falsely accused.
yeah.
And at the end they show him doing it and I was like, fuck.
So like they actually went through it, and it's like, and yeah, so this show basically became like this is the aftermath of what happened. Um, Episode 2 is the aftermath, basically. The friend. Oh yeah, I will say this. You know how you said like actually this is something I should say. I wanted to say before you, but you were talking. It was just okay. If you really think, if I have to say honestly, I feel like when you argue about the father, you know, being this like not the best father supposedly, even though he's a good guy, I feel like that's more so of the cop, the father, the cop who's the father, the black guy. I feel like that's more so, what we can say like he's the guy like that. I'm not saying he's a bad father himself, right? But like it seems like he's like again the Jamie's father was a stand-up father. Not great, like because we in terms of how he has a temper issue, whatever. But like if you really think about it, the black father, right, who's the cop, he's more so as the absentee father, because he's not really involved in his child's life. Doesn't really show much compassion, if anything. Doesn't really know much. He's just focused on his job. If anything, it took this situation to like get him to understand, like, hey, wow, I really got to be a part of my child's life. You know?
I really liked seeing them repair their relationship and all of that. I thought that was really sweet. Him taking his kid out for lunch and everything. I thought that was cool. I also was impressed in this episode with how well they did the chase with that kid. I thought that was really interesting because, again, no cuts or anything. So the camera really followed them for a long time. They ran for like a mile, it looked like. And it was just the whole time, it was very heart pounding.
Yeah, I will say. Oh yeah, going back to cinematography, like the whole how it's like a one done shot, right? It does remind me of how like professional wrestling is. If you really think about it, it is a one done shot where if you only have one chance to do certain things, or again, it could not be just because again, why I mentioned professional wrestling, have bring back to wrestling on my channel because again, that's like an example that I know. Or heck, even live shows. Like if you like look at even like a famous live show, like that's again a live soap opera type of show. Not soap opera.
Kind of like a play.
Yeah, kind of play, or heck, like kind of like Saturday Night Live in a weird sense. Like Saturday Night Live is a popular show, which again it goes live, um, and again it's yeah, even though it has like a bunch of cameras, but it kind of is a sense of the idea. But obviously, it's definitely its own type of uniqueness.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen a show or movie actually do it. I've seen things that were edited to make it look like it was one shot, like that 1917 movie never has any cuts and it's made to look like it's one shot. The Birdman movie as well, but this is the only thing I've ever seen that actually did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to episode 2. Episode 2 is again the aftermath, the friends of Jamie who are. So it shows like this is something what we learn about Jamie, or just at least like people you associate with. The two kids that he actually like are friends with, we kind of see that they're social rejects and how that kind of plays a role in terms of why people talk about like masculinity or incel type of shit, right? They're somewhat social rejects. There's something about Jamie. One of Jamie's friends get hit by one of Katie's friends. It's mentioned that yeah, so that's like again a big complex. Like everybody basically hates Jamie's friends. Anyone associated with Jamie because of all this shit. Um, Something that I will mention. I even took like notes earlier. We something that um is like mentioned that's shown is that um and this is that you see like one scene. I think these are like what like supposedly these are not the social rejects, right? A type of kid. You see, this is something like that's interesting. Like that also goes like the back to like whole you know how kids can act or basically kid. So what I'm trying to say is you see a scene where two kids um they get confronted by a teacher like, oh, fix your shirt or whatever, right? It's like, oh, what does that teacher know about us? Like, they're like they go on to insult the woman, but then they go like, oh, I can't believe what Jamie did, But then like go back to like supporting, like being angry about what happened with Jamie, why he did to the good Katie. Kind of shows like the imbalance of like the whole like, you know, do men actually care about women type of shit, or it's something like I even saw like on a video that's mentioned that is a kind of like show like the whole little struggle of like men and how they treat women, you can say.
Right. And I also think it kind of exposes again kind of what social media does, where it makes you not really care about these actual fucked up things that are happening. It's just the story, it's just the news, it's just another one of these fucked up things, not realizing like, hey, people's lives are ruined. Like, not
Yeah,
only is the girl's family's life ruined, but the kid who did it, their lives are fucking ruined too. Like, it's all, everything is bad and nothing is going right for these people. Like, their lives are completely fucked, but to them it's just another story, it's just another thing that happened, and it's, it really is fucked up when you think about it.
yeah. I again I wrote it here. Yeah, basically that's what it is. Fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say. I lost my part, but that yeah, that's something I say that it kind of shows that whole like imbalance of like people be how people behave. You know what I mean? That imbalance of how people act. It's not just again like the whole. It's just again. I'm not. I know this is again supposed to be talking about like whole like oh person's life was lost, but it exposes and why I think people are talking about again the show. This is one of the reasons why people are talking about the show. It's about whole masculinity and men being misogynistic. Men's issue type of. Trying to make this like a whole issue about how they're not movie. I mean, this could have been a movie. Really think about it. How this show again was kind of somewhat where people took this film or not this movie, I'm sorry, or this show and made it about like how we're gonna talk about this is how men are this and whatever, and this is why certain things happen. So like the whole social commentary of how it's like masculinity, how men treat women are like trash supposedly.
I think the issue isn't masculinity in and of itself. I think that the idea of toxic masculinity is kind of like, it's when masculinity is used in a way that's negative. It's not to say that masculinity in and of itself is a bad thing, because there are good, positive, masculine role models out there that do good things, give back to their community, that are strong, able to defend themselves, able to defend people who need defending. Those people do exist, but it's not the Manosphere people. It's not Andrew Tate. And that's kind of what I think it is. This idea that's not actually masculine, I would argue that Andrew Tate and the way that he acts is not an example of classic masculinity. I would argue that it's just an angry reaction to women. It's not really what being masculine is about. So these kids, these very easily influenceable people see that, and they mistake that for masculinity, and they think that's the way I need to act, when in all actuality it's not. They need to be looking up to more positive masculine role models. I mean, there are plenty of people to choose from, like, I would argue that John Bernthal is a good masculine role model. He's a strong fucking guy. He's a big beefy dude. He could obviously kick your ass, but he genuinely has a caring personality. He cares about people and he wants to help them out, and he does good things and he does right by people. And he doesn't talk about how women are trash. He doesn't talk about how men are trash. He just goes on and he fucking talks about like the truth. He gives his opinion, he gives his views, but he never comes off like a fucking asshole. He never comes off like he's just using people or he views them as objects or anything like that. So I would say, there is good masculinity out there, and I would argue that what we see as toxic masculinity, well, that's not masculinity at all. That's just a dude acting like a fucking retard. Like, I don't know.
I was gonna ask you this question, like and I'm gonna ask it later, but keep that in mind. Like, what you think that I was gonna ask you that. Do you think toxic masculinity exists? Right, and I do want you to really think of that, and we'll talk about it. That's a future topic to answer, but just think about it, I guess. Um, the reason why we're not going through that now because I do want to get through like the whole recap of the show and also just my notes, and we'll go from there. Episode 2 again. the aftermath. Jamie. Basically, like we see like the two friend groups, Jamie friends and Katie friends, like they're how they interact. It's mentioned that Jamie and Katie they interact, but mostly on social media. But it turns out that Katie unfortunately bullied Jamie. Uh, so that's what happened. That's the suspicion, and the officers learn that he needs to. And the officer, the black guy, right? He
Mhm.
learns that his son, in reality, could be bullied too because of that. Because of like the type of stuff that goes on. Um, and he even learned like how his son like kind of even mentions like the whole term of 80-20 rule, right? Um, which yeah, like I don't know. I guess because get it. Oh, Jamie was bullied. It does mention like how Jamie was probably bullied because they think I'm ugly and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um. I don't know anything you want to say about episode
I
two.
mean, yeah, they did use a lot of the incel terms. They used a lot. I think they did a pretty yeah, it was honestly kind of astounding. I thought they did their homework. They really did their homework when they were making this. It wasn't just like an incels are bad. It was like no, they knew about the 80-20 rule. They knew about emojis and shit that I had no fucking idea about. They had like the purple heart means something and the orange one does too. I didn't fucking know that. I didn't know that the different colored hearts had different meanings. I thought they were just
So,
colorful and fun.
so enlighten me. What's the difference of each the heart? Because I don't know
I
this.
don't know all of them, but in the show it said that purple heart means sexy and that red heart means love and devotion and that orange heart is like being your friend. And like I don't know, they're all fucking different. If that's the case, that's insane to me. I had no idea. I thought it was just they just had them on there because they're fun to have different colored hearts. But like yeah, I guess
Well,
they all mean something different.
well,
Very interesting.
well, fuck it, Marie. I'm gonna send you an orange and red heart.
Don't do that.
Apparently there was. Isn't that friendship supposedly?
Yeah, I guess it's
That's
I that's what they said on the show, and
that's
I'll take their word for it. I'm just gonna stick with the regular love react to a message. I think that that's fine.
yeah. But yeah, I guess I'll do that now though. Um. Okay. I did not know that, or at least I forgot about that, but I didn't get it. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to mention again, like, yeah, because I took some notes before the whole recap, where, like, yeah, so they did mention Andrew Tate. They did mention, basically the whole, all got it, like, kids nowadays, they see it. Oh, yeah, this is something I wanted to say. It turns out because, and this is why I wanted to even mention it. It turns out, like, yeah, if you really think about it, the whole incel terminologies or incel ideology has become mainstream because now a lot of people they'll, basically that's the thing. It has gone to the point where people will call anybody an incel even though they're not an incel. I think like that's something like even our friend groups are guilty of doing. Well, you like associate anything as incel argument or incel mentality when again that's just a mainstream idea ideology,
Right.
Yeah. Episode 3. Jamie has there is the therapist episode. Jamie has a therapist, right? Jamie's Jamie says the therapist tries to trick him. But then this leads to like a way where the therapist has to learn to not basically trick him, but just kind of get close to him, but get an understanding of him. Jamie revealed he has emotional. He's really emotionally unstable. He's asked about masculinity, what he thinks of it. He says that his father has a temper issue, and lashes out. He basically acts like Andrew Tate supposedly, how Andrew Tate would act towards women, trying to display that it's like, get it, like I gotta try to be tough to women, blah blah blah. It's revealed that he knew what led to all this issue, right? What led to basically one of the contributing factors of why he murdered Katie, or what kind of like the elements that led to that issue, right? Like basically like how it been building up to the moment, right? Um, how it was revealed that on the show that Katie's nudes were leaked, and how Jamie the other profiles are like, yeah, so he only has Instagram to see other profiles. He he also it's also claimed to identify is unfortunately he claimed to be identified as incel because of how people were making fun of him, calling him ugly and all that. Again, like a kid being incel, it just doesn't make any sense. But again, people will just say that because how dare a kid use their teen be a virgin, whatever. Um, he questions why Katie targeted him. It turns out that Jamie does have interest towards Katie, how he did like kind of liked her, right? Especially kind of felt bad for her, but not just that. He also kind of did have a crush on her. Uh, but she mocked him for it. She mocked him for it, and even her, I believe she was one of the people that called him an incel also. Um, and yeah, this also that yeah, it just showed that unfortunately because of this, Jamie kind of resembled like those fake nice guys who they're not actually nice but end up being freaking not very good people. It also goes to show like again it exposed that Jamie just because maybe this was his first time again having this big rejection with a girl. He clearly didn't know how to handle rejection, and
Understatement of the year.
yeah, so unfortunately that led to him doing what he did. Uh, but again, it was a reveal that with his friend, he got the knife from the friend. Right, I forgot to mention. Um, the only reason he had that knife to scare Katie because again, like Katie was making fun of him. But yeah, um, yeah, definitely, yeah, but definitely the Jamie. It was learned that he's mentally unstable. He's not stable, and then how it also led to Jamie being very angry. Like all this, like learning that basically the therapist was not really like trying to actually get to know him. It's just again just learning about him to like for future cases, which made him angry. Started acting like very angry towards like, don't you like me? Don't you like me? And then and like, how dare you? Yeah, it's just all that kind of like a man, a hating on women rant, right? Now we get to episode 4, which is the last episode. Eddie the father, basically a main. This was the main episode, basically based on him. If you really think about it, the fallout of him. It is his birthday. Accuses of being a pedo because of supposedly like if your son does crazy shit, apparently that means you're a pedo.
Yeah, they vandalized his van
Yeah,
and they wrote "nonce" on the side, which is British for pedophile.
yeah, um, yeah. So this does definitely show like how the family deals with shame and torture from the world supposedly. Yeah, I mean not supposedly, like unfortunately. And and the parents wonder where they were good parents. That maybe giving the kid a computer may have impacted his life. Because apparently computer messes up people. That's like to me that's like saying like what does video games mess up people? It's kind of like that argument. You know what I mean?
Well, I would argue, probably. It probably doesn't do a whole lot of good for him. The idea of turning on a video game, you go home, you turn your little system on, and you just sit there murdering people for hours on end on the screen. I'm not saying we should ban video games. I'm not that. I think if you want to play video games, you should have every right to do so. I like playing video games. I'm a big RoboCop fan. But I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not having an effect on someone's brain. Obviously, that's gonna. And I mean, I would argue the same thing for your social media. Should we ban it? No, obviously not. People should be allowed to use social media. They should have the freedom to do that. However, it's not good for you. It's definitely bad to constantly fill your head with shit like that. And I think that it made a good point in that episode when the dad talks about, you know, he's like, I just went to look for fitness videos and I saw this guy just talking like an asshole about women. It's like, yeah, that happens. Like, and if you got some 13-year-old kid just trying to look up on his Instagram, like, how do I do push-ups? And they fucking constantly push fucking women's asses in his face. And they constantly push fucking weird ideas to him. Then yeah, he's gonna see it and he's gonna engage with it. He's gonna give it a like, and it'll show him another one, and he'll comment on one. Even if he disagrees with it, he'll comment on it, and then it'll show him another one, and it'll just be the same fucking thing over and over again, filling your head with this nonsense. And I'm not even saying they go out of their way to make you do anything. I don't think they do. They're just companies. They're trying to make money. It makes sense. The things that you watch, the things that you engage with, or just even the things that are popular, they're going to show it to you to get you to engage with it. And then once you do, it can lead you down a rabbit hole. And that's what happened to the kid in the show, is that he saw something and he just went down a rabbit hole and he fucking came out the other end crazy. I mean, there's plenty of people that do that. The amount of fucking communists I know can tell you that. They tell me that they like Mao. I've met people online that were Nazis. I've met people online that have done all sorts of crazy shit and believe the wildest stuff because one day they turned on their phone and they saw something and they went down a rabbit hole they probably shouldn't have gone down, and they came out the other side a complete fucking weirdo. Like, that's a real fucking thing, man. And you might not see them every day, but like, genuine people who believe the shit that Hitler believed, they exist and they walk around among you. And a lot of that has to do with just the way that the internet is made to make you go down these rabbit holes. And I don't know, like, the show, I think the show kind of hints at that. I would argue they could have gone further in explaining what happened, maybe, but
Yeah.
I don't know. You kind of just get the vague idea that he got really into Andrew Tate and the incel stuff, but they never actually show you what he was watching or even really tell you what he was watching. They just kind of give you a vague idea.
I just also kind of like think like one of the thing is like what's like the whole like solution of this. If you're gonna question the issue of masculinity, what is the solution, right?
The solution is for parents to be in their kids' lives.
Okay,
that is the solution, and
but
to limit the amount of cell phone usage you give them, limit their internet, look at what the fuck they're looking at. You have no excuse as a parent these days to not know what your kid is doing. When the internet was new, sure. But now that we have the technology to have like the home security and everything that we can have on our phones and all of that stuff to just look at what your fucking kids are doing, it's not that hard. And I think a lot of this is on fucking parents to actually take the initiative, be involved in your kid's life, and be a good male role model. And then they will grow up to treat women with respect and do the right thing and to know what to look at and to know what's bullshit. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to having a difficult conversation with your kid before it gets out of hand. Like, you grow up giving them a good role model, give them something actually to aspire to, do right by them, and you'll probably be fucking fine. But don't just ignore them. Don't just let them go off and let the internet be their dad. Like, that's what fucks them up.
I agree. So I wrote that. I actually wrote what you said. That exactly what I thought. Like that was. But again, when I asked that question, I just felt like that's what the show should have displayed. Like, what is something like, if they wanted to like at least give like an answer to people, like if for some reason we're really clueless, what is the solution? You know what I mean? Something like there should have been like a social commentary on the show to mention like how do we handle like something if you're gonna mention the whole insult terms, which I feel like again the whole idea where people saying this is like an insult culture type of movie or not movie will show. I feel like it just really just they're just mentioning it because get it, it's one of the trending things to talk about where the whole idea of inceldom, it's like a big thing with men, at least like I don't know, mention something like what they could have done, but like it really just felt like again the whole idea of like if they're gonna like them trying to make it seem like it's like a masculine, more so that's the idea of the issue. It's all about masculinity, whatever. I just felt like this movie, this show, I kept saying movie is really just more so about bullying, right? It's not necessarily about masculinity or incels. It's just really just mentioning people. It's just those terms are mentioned to make it, claim as a big deal than it is, and as it is really just more so about bullying. Like, I feel like that's more so of the big issue, like the whole idea of
I
bullying.
mean, definitely for sure.
Yeah,
And I would
internet culture, I guess. It's I mean that concept of bullying, cyberbullying is a big issue. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, the
yeah,
bullying angle was definitely something that the show tackled, and I would say was a big part of it.
it
That
was.
you know, I mean, it's true. I mean, if somebody's having a problem, the answer is probably not to beat them down. It would be to help them out. I
Yeah,
agree with that. But at the same time, uh, I would also say that it doesn't matter how badly you've been bullied. There's never an excuse to stab somebody to death.
absolutely.
So
I mean, that's what I was gonna say, anyways. But yeah, I took notes. Well, you basically said about like what I would say, like what would be a solution to, like, in terms of the whole solve like the masculinity issue, or just what to do to solve this issue of, like, you know how kids or men in general to not be crazy, is again restrict them from, again, too much of a good thing or too much of a certain thing could be too much, like even a nice healthy dish. What I learned, a nice healthy dish, if too much of it could not really necessarily be a good thing. So um
absolutely. I say toxic masculinity is a problem. I would say it does exist. However, the answer to toxic masculinity is not to attack masculinity as a whole. It would be to replace toxic masculinity with positive, healthy masculinity. You would again have positive males in your life, positive male role models that you can look up to and aspire to be like. Those are very important. Those people should not be dogged on just for being men. I agree with all of that. I think that the man hating is too much. Uh, but I don't think that the answer to man hating is woman hating or being a psycho or being a crazy guy. There are a lot of people that look up to Andrew Tate, and it's kind of sad. Even just random people you run into, they'll just tell you like, man, he's a big influence on my life. I invest in certain things because of him. I do all of these things because of him, and it's like, man, you got to understand, Andrew Tate is the kind of person that will prey on your feelings. Like, he knows that you're a man who's been disenfranchised and you're upset. You're mad at the world. You're mad at women. You're mad at everybody. And he knows it. And he makes videos specifically to target those feelings, to get you pissed off, to get you on his side, to follow him, and to share his shit around. It's a fucked up cycle. That's what a lot of people do. It's rage marketing. And, I mean, I'm the kind of person that likes poking the bear. I would just say know what bears you're poking and know what the right thing, the right cause, the right fight to get behind is. I think angry people who have shit lives, people who are struggling, it's very, very easy for them to latch on to the wrong person. I've seen it happen time and time again. I knew this guy Carlisle back in the day. He was a nerdy pimply guy that no woman would ever look at and want to be with. Now, he did have a way to fix himself. He could have gone out and worked out and done a lot of things to make himself better, but he didn't choose to do that. Instead, he chose to become a neo-Nazi. I watched this man become a neo-Nazi before my eyes. It was the craziest fucking thing. He started off relatively normal, had normal conversations, and then like a year later, he was literally posting swastikas on his fucking timeline, had pictures of himself in a fucking SS uniform. It was the fucking wildest thing I've seen. And that happened because he was a pathetic little pissed off guy, and it was easy for him to fucking latch onto the wrong thing. And it's easy for a lot of young men to do that. And I feel bad for a lot of people that they do that. But also your actions are on you. You can't blame other people for what you've done. And it's just one of those things. Um, and I would just say these people need to be careful. They're being preyed upon. You are a product to these people. They are using you to get views, using you to get money, using you for all sorts of fucking things, and it's just not good for you. So, yeah,
So
Toxic masculinity, sure, it exists, but so does positive masculinity, and I think that's where our focus should be.
so here's my 2 cents about Andrew Tate. I don't hate him. Okay, I'll be honest with you. I think again the main thing about Andrew Tate, he's a character. That's what people need to understand. He's a character. He's just basically like he's no different than like I would say a Steven Crowder, or and you don't like Steven Crowder. He's no different than a lot of these social commentary people. He's basically a character. Does it in character. He has a persona to him. Uh am I saying that is he like an example why like basically is everything you should say he says actually take into your life and do? No, absolutely not. But what I will say is I do understand why men will listen to him because again we do live in a society now where it does seem like again men are shit on for with the type of world we're living in. That's why a
Right.
lot of men would gravitate to him. But doesn't mean that we have to necessarily like just hate on women because then we're ending up being like we're basically being essentially the opposite. We're basically kind of being the similar situation as feminists. We're basically becoming anti women, in type of
Exactly.
that. We're being the opposite of feminist. Well, what I'm trying to say, no, we're basically being the reverse feminists. That's the proper term.
Exactly. The answer to a problem is never to participate in the same problem.
Yeah. But again, I'm not saying I hate because there are things to agree with him, right? I'm not saying like he's like he's like a great guy to absolutely
Right. I mean,
think.
he's definitely said things that I agree with in the past. I've seen things that he's posted on Twitter, and I've thought, well, that's a good point here and there. Like he said some political stuff where I'm like, yeah, the government should get out of your life. And yeah, this is better if taxes are run better and all of that stuff. But at the same time, he just, again, like I was saying, and you might be right about the character thing, but what he does is he just goes out of his way to get you mad so you'll watch and to make you feel a certain way so you'll watch, and people do. And like you said, I mean, it makes sense that men gravitate to that. Like it absolutely does. They are shit on by society. Men are treated poorly by fucking mainstream society, or they have been for a while. I agree with that completely. Feminism has gotten in people's brains. It's made people retarded. But the answer is not to do the exact opposite. Also, like you had said, it's not to participate in the things that they've done. It's to actually do the right thing.
You have to be filtered. You have to understand like what to say, what not to do. It's kind of like again having manners, right? So
It's just being not a shithead.
yeah, I mean, not that I would say it's not a problem to like think like like I'm not saying necessarily copy the same thing that Andrew Tate says and apply it to your life, but like you could take it to like understand like yeah, I agree with this and this is something like sure I can maybe learn from, but obviously use it to the best. Like it's all the term like with great power comes great responsibility. Make sure that you're what you do has to make sense. I would say like your action has consequences. Are you there? Hello? Hello? Did you hear what I was saying?
I don't know if this is my connection or his, or if
Oh,
you can hear me right now.
yeah, I can hear you
Um,
now.
but if you can, Adolescence
Yeah,
is
I
a
can
good
hear
show.
you.
You should watch it. Check it out. Turn on your old Netflix, flip through the channel, find Adolescence, watch all 4 episodes. It's a good show, thought provoking, makes you think interesting things. You can watch it with your mom, your dad, your baby, your grandma, your grandpa, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, your first cousin twice removed. You can watch it with anybody. It's a good show, and
I hope you're not leaving.
it's very modernized, very interesting, very impressive. You should check it out.
Hello, Emery?
Hi,
Oh, I hope you're not leaving or something.
I was just talking because
Oh,
it cut
okay.
out.
Yeah. All right. Um. Yeah. Yeah. Again. Yeah. Adolescence is a good show. Um. Going back to your thoughts of toxic masculinity, I'll be honest with you. I think this whole term of toxic masculinity is stupid. I don't believe it. Um, that's just me. I just
Well,
think
then
this
what
whole
would you say it is? What would you call that?
in terms of, so what is toxic masculinity? Like just you being a guy, like
No, it's not you just being a guy. I mean, it's not toxic to want to go to the gun range. You know, that's a guy thing to do. It's not toxic to eat steak. It's not toxic to lift weights. It's not toxic to be a protector. Those are all very masculine things. Those are all very positive things.
yeah,
Uh,
but then you have like feminists that will say like, oh, that's misogynistic, or
those, but that's stupid. I disagree with them. I don't think that those are toxic. However, there are things that are seen as masculine that are toxic, like womanizing and seeing women as property, and a lot of the fucking again, a lot of the Andrew Tate things
so
are
again, like the whole like okay, womanizing. Do you think like that's like does that associate with you would say like cold approach or like at least like trying to talk to it?
womanizing, going out and fucking a bunch of women and not treating them like humans and not being in a relationship with them and just treating them like property, things that are very male, that's just kind of a man thing, kind of traditionally masculine and traditionally male thing that I think is negative. I think that that's not good to treat women that way. And I think a lot of men see that as like a macho thing to do and a fucking masculine thing to do. I think that there are certain men that will look down on people for not being as muscular as them or not being as masculine as them. I would say that that is a toxic thing as well. But it's also
Okay, I would.
toxic to be against that. I think that, men should try to be masculine. I think that being masculine is good, but I also think that you need to be masculine in a positive way and not a negative way, because there are certain ways that being masculine is negative, and you should just know what that is and know not to do that. But
Okay.
being masculine in and of itself isn't bad. It's a good thing to be masculine, just not it's not a good thing to be a piece of shit about it. And that's when I think it becomes toxic masculinity. And again, like I was saying before, the way that you fix that is by having good masculinity. It's not that masculinity is bad, it's a very good thing, but you have to do it right, just like anything else.
So I would say in terms of like then I would just say like those are just people being assholes. We don't even need to put the term toxic in it. Maybe you
I
could
mean,
just say those are toxic people, but it doesn't need necessarily we're gonna talk with toxic in front of masculinity. Those are just toxic people that you should stay away from. Let's just say that. Um, but would you agree with the term of toxic femininity? Do you think that's a thing?
yeah, I think that you could be feminine in a very toxic way too. You could be feminine in a positive way. Like it's not exclusive. I mean, there are women who will do feminine things very negatively and influence you. Like if you piss a woman off and she just constantly tries to nag you and ruin your life and do all sorts of things, that's toxic femininity for sure. Positive femininity would be someone who's caring and nurturing, listens to you, fucking cares about you, like fucking there are positive aspects to being a woman, I think, and that is positive. And the way, again, to combat the negative is to fucking replace it with positive. It's not to do more negative things. So I think that in our culture, we've really just we add a lot of labels to things. We add a lot of fucking whatever to whatever, and we get offended about it. But at the end of the day, the problem is just people being shitty, and they can use. I mean, fucking Jordan Peterson has a whole thing where he talks about like how the man is supposed to protect. That's a positive masculine role. But when it gets perverted, he starts hurting the people around him. He'll hurt his wife, hurt his kids, and do fucked up things because the masculinity has been twisted negatively. And same thing with women, where he's like, women are supposed to be caring and nurturing, but once you twist that, they turn it around on the people around them and they fuck them over as well. So
Yeah.
I think it's a double edged, it's a two-sided coin.
Yeah. So I agree with terms like how men like bragging like just like like having sex with a bunch of chicks like that's dumb. Like why not actually find one chick, right? Um, but again, like the same thing you can say also with women. Why you're like with high body counts and kind of using men. Using men for their like gain, like they would like being the face nice girl type of deal. You use men gold diggish type of shit, whatever, or whatever, just like using your body to get certain things. I think that's something you could say, like it's also like a in terms of toxic femininity. I would absolutely agree, but again, I would just say like that's just toxic in general. That's just dumb and just abusing your right as a human being. So that's what I would say. um yeah, I mean, womanizer, like again, like there's nothing wrong with being flirtatious, I guess, with like with women if you're a guy. But obviously you have the obligation that if you're a guy and you are actually in a committed relationship, you should not be like committing some sort of adultery. I think that's just like, and again, that goes by both issues. You should not be committing adultery because that could be considered as adultery.
Yeah, absolutely. You shouldn't be committing adultery. You shouldn't be doing a lot of things that society wants you to do. You should fucking go with your heart and know what being a good person is and follow that and not fucking not do wicked, evil, fucked up things. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
Fucking again, we get too caught up in our image and the things and the way people want to be seen. All of that stuff. Uh, it is egged on by social media. It is egged on by the internet. And I think that was kind of the point of the show where it's like, people's insecurities, you turn on your phone and it gets turned to fucking times 100. Like
Yeah.
you've already got these little things that bother you and little things that, tick you off and little things that make you fucking upset. And when you turn your phone on and you start looking at social media and scrolling, it just makes that 100 times worse for you. You just fucking, I don't know. It makes you feel empty. It makes you feel rage. It makes you feel all sorts of things. And when you're already a mentally ill kid, when you're already the kind of kid who gets angry and lashes out and has these problems, and your dad's not around, and all you're doing is filling your head full of anger and sadness and all sorts of negative emotions online, it's going to manifest itself in really negative ways. And I really think that was the point it was getting at. And I do kind of get what you're saying. I mean, like, it's not just about being an incel. That's not really, I mean, the show uses that as the framework. It uses the manosphere as the framework, but it's ultimately about how negative this fucking internet shit is on us as people. And it just kind of drives you into a negative mindset and negative feelings. And I think that was the important takeaway, is that you need to be careful about the things that you look at online and the things that you fill your head with, because next thing you know, you might be a victim of, someone trying to rage bait you. I was listening to a podcast the other day, like 3 or 4 days ago now, and on the it was a news podcast, and they were talking about these people that went into a school board meeting and were screaming at parents and just talking down to them and being really shitty. And I was listening to it and I was getting really pissed off. I was like, how could you talk to these people like this? These are concerned parents. These are parents that care about their kids. Why would you talk down to them? And then I had to take a step back and think about it. That shit doesn't affect me. Why do I care so much? I should probably step away from it and stop making myself mad and making myself angry about these things. And it's not bad to care about stuff. But once you're just listening to something or watching something and you feel yourself getting angry and really caring about something too much, that's when it's time to understand maybe my internet addiction is a little too much. Maybe I should go outside and read a book.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, it does point out that, and that's something I would say is from what I've learned, or just at least like what would be the good argument is, again, the internet is definitely the something that we should not be relying on too much. Definitely, the internet has played a big role, which kind of changed the world. But again, it made the world, and it changed the world for where it could be more so the worse, unfortunately, than compared to before. Um, I do want to mention the notes that I did write, and I want to. I mean, I already kind of referenced to them already because based on just what I remembered. But I'm gonna fully go through my notes, try not be too long with it. But I'm gonna kind of like go through like as I've been, when listening to the show, watching the show. I'm gonna go through like the notes of them. But I do want to say like that the show like, oh, you're not just. I do feel like when they mention the term toxic masculinity, I feel like that's such a left leaning term. That's just a such stupid liberal term to use. you know, that all the toxic masculinity, because like that's just a way to like get it. We'll hate on men for doing this shit or whatever. I do feel like that's kind of like it does feel like, even though I did like the show, I feel like that's like, again, it is good targets, you know, men who are conservative and all that kind of shit.
I can kind of see it. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying. There were a couple of moments in the show where it kind of felt a little on the nose. However, I agreed with the overall point it was making. I will say there were a couple of lines though that were. I think the line that took me out of it the most was they were talking about like the Manosphere, and then this female cop kind of like butts in and she's like, "Oh, you know that Andrew Tate bullshit," and like
Yeah,
the whole conversation up to that point was fine and didn't need that thrown in there.
yeah,
I fully agreed with what they were saying and what they were doing, but then she came in and again it was just, it felt like it was too on the nose, a little too
yeah,
clear.
yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah.
that's probably the one, if I were to make a decision, I probably would have cut that line out. I guess you can't really cut anything, but
Because like that's where, like, you know, you have like the whole like, now it's like, oh, see, this is like, it's gonna be our side, like it's gonna lead to like the side where if you're watching it and most liberals don't like Andrew Tate, this is gonna be like more so their side. And you have conservative, that's the thing too about, like, you know, that's like, it's funny like how we're conservatives and you're a conservative, but you don't like Andrew Tate. Like, what's your thoughts, like conservatives are like, that Andrew Tate's like popular conservatives?
I think it's kind of silly because Andrew Tate is not somebody I would consider a conservative. He's definitely right wing, but conservative to me implies a traditional mindset. When I hear the word conservative, I think of guys like I would think of someone like working on a farm and going to church every Sunday and doing all these like kind of more traditional things. Andrew Tate is not a very traditional guy. He used to run a sex thing. I don't know if you would call it sex trafficking necessarily. I think legally it was considered sex trafficking, but it wasn't like he was stuffing women in a tractor trailer and taking them across state lines. However, he was manipulating them into being cam girls for him and giving them his money and kind of being kind of an online pimp. And that's not conservative whatsoever. It might, the things he did, I mean, they might be considered right wing, but there's nothing conservative about Andrew Tate. He's a sex addicted fucking maniac who only cares about money and fucking people over. It's not really about conservatism. I would say if you think about what a conservative is, I would think someone like Matt Walsh. That's a conservative to me. He is a family man who has he has right wing opinions, but most of it is traditional. A lot of it is stemmed from his religious beliefs. He's a very devout Catholic, and it just kind of has a again more of a what you would consider like an old school American traditional, you leave me alone, I leave you alone kind of conservative vibe. Andrew Tate, on the other hand, I would argue is definitely right wing, but not conservative. I don't even know what you would really call him. I don't want to call him a fascist because that's not like what he is either. I mean, he's not like, he doesn't come off like some kind of authoritarian guy. And he's also a Muslim. He talks about how he respects Islam because if you wear a shirt walking down the street that says fuck Jesus, nobody will beat you up. But if you have one that says fuck Muhammad, they'll kill you for it. And for some reason that appeals to him. So I don't think that's very conservative either. I think that conservatives gravitate to him because, like I had said before, they're angry. Over these last 4 years, shit, I would argue over the last fucking 16 years, conservatives have kind of been thrown through the ringer and treated like shit and told that their opinion doesn't matter and told that they were Hitler and they were evil and they were Satan and all of these horrible, terrible things just because they happened to disagree with the liberals and the people who were in power. And this caused them to get angry. And someone like Andrew Tate, who's a pissed off guy that even slightly agrees with them politically, was someone they were willing to like invite in and willing to accept and make part of their whole thing. I mean, I don't know. I think that, again, I think that people are very feeling driven. Um, you know, Ben Shapiro talks a lot about, facts don't care about your feelings. But a lot of the time, facts don't really matter to people. Like, it's a lot of it has to do with, like, how does this make me feel? Does this make me feel good inside? And that's what I'm gonna go with, and they just kind of go with that. And I don't know. I think that that's kind of the case for a lot of Andrew Tate fans, and I think that he knows that. I think he's fully aware that he's pissing people off, and I think that he revels in it. I think that he likes it because it makes
Yeah.
him the most money.
Yeah, definitely. I will say like so like so basically like we can just say he's right wing. I would say like now thinking about like what you're saying, I guess instead of just me like saying like I'm conservative, I would say I'm more right wing because again like the reason why you would probably say that because again you mentioned this before like oh because I wanted a harem one time supposedly, right? Hello, are you okay? Or we got Stone Emery right now.
Whoa, I'm cutting in and out.
Yeah, Stone
But I think
Emery
he
in the
was
house.
agreeing with me there. I don't know. I guess you
Okay.
guys know how I feel about Andrew Tate now. Not a big fan. That was the thing that turned me off of Candace Owens. I know that
Mm-hmm.
she's always been a little wacko, a little crazy. She had that whole website where she wanted to dox people. And that was like a liberal thing that was back when she was a lib, and then she became conservative. And she did an interview with him where she kind of downplayed the stuff that he did, and that bothered me. So that's why I don't watch Candace Owens. Never really been a big fan. Always kind of just after the Tate interview, I was like, I'm good. I'm good. That was right around the time I was getting into politics too. So I've always just kind of been like, with Candace. I will say, Tucker Carlson is someone who who I want to say I like him, but at the same time I don't. I'm very torn on Tucker Carlson. Sometimes I'm like, fuck yeah, Tucker, this is cool. And then other times I'm like, like this video I saw, someone had been filming with their phone. Andrew Tate shows up, and this man acted like a fucking little girl. He runs up to Andrew Tate like, "Oh my God, it's you! I can't believe it's you! I love you!" And it was the most fucking pathetic thing I think I've ever seen a conservative commentator do. It made me feel fucking gross inside. I was like, "What are you fucking doing, Mister Fucking? I like to hunt in the backwoods and be a fucking like traditional conservative guy. You're gonna hang out with Andrew Tate and get giddy about." And I'm not even against interviewing the guy. That's fine. If you want to interview Andrew Tate, that's awesome. I think it's cool to have him around and fucking interview him and to like pick his brain, whatever. But give him hard questions. Fucking give him something to combat against. Don't just fucking sit there and act like he's on your side when he's not. Don't let him downplay the fucked up shit that he did. That's the whole issue with Candace Owens. It was fine to have him on an interview, but to fucking downplay the whole sex trafficking charge, to downplay all of that shit and act like all of that was nothing. The things that he had said about women, she's like, "So these things you said about women aren't that bad." It's like, are you fucking shitting me? Like, he's clearly fucking insane. Like, I don't know. The things that I've seen him say, the stuff that I've seen him do, the old videos too. That's the thing that gets me. It's not so much the new TikTok stuff of him filming himself and saying all sorts of shit that I might agree or disagree with. It was literally him years ago on YouTube filming himself telling people how to sex traffic women and how to be a pimp. Like, how fucking like that right there, that's toxic. That's bad for you. That's something people shouldn't be doing. I think that teaching someone how to be a scumbag, I mean, that's just a level too far for me. That's not something I could really get behind. I don't think that that's something we should be doing for people. Fucking I don't know much about his brother though. I've heard a lot of people say that his brother's better. I don't care to find out. Tristan Tate, don't know much about him. I know he claims to be a Christian. If he is, that's awesome. If he isn't, I feel bad for him. Whatever. I don't really care either way. But I've heard Tristan Tate is like the more sensible brother. That's fine. Again, I don't really know a whole lot about him. I only really know about Andrew because he's the famous one and he's the one that's made the biggest splash. Obviously, because he pissed the most people off. That's what got him famous. It was all orchestrated in his head. Now, were you saying something before you cut out?
Yeah, I don't think it matters anymore. I was gonna mention. Oh yeah, what's your thoughts of Andrew Tate apparently pissing off the Muslims now because apparently he said something about Islam, and now all the Muslims are angry about him.
What did he say?
He said, I don't remember, but like all I know is like he's not a real Muslim anymore. How dare he? All that kind of shit.
I don't know what he said exactly. So I don't know what opinion to really have on it. I will
Andrew
say
Tate and Muslim.
anything anti-Islam, I usually agree with.
Muslims.
Apparently he apparently called certain Muslims crybabies because they cry about stupid shit.
I mean, I agree with him for sure. I think that a lot of them are kind of whiny. I think that blowing someone up or stabbing them to death for disagreeing with you is a bad move. Not to say every Muslim is like that, for sure. But if I were to come to you and say, "Hey, someone just blew themselves up in a building and killed a bunch of people, and it was a religious terrorist. Do you want to guess which religion that was?" You would say Islam every time because that's just the trend. That's what it is. That's what happens. So I don't know.
Now I know why. Yeah, apparently. So what happened is he mentioned how radical Islamic terrorism is a thing, and supposedly all the Muslims are angry about that.
Well, he is right. Radical Islamic terrorism is a thing, and it's a problem. And these good Muslims, they should address that. They always talk about the. That's always the argument. Is there's good Muslims out there that don't believe in that. Well, that's great. Those good Muslims that don't believe in that, they need to stand strong. They need to stand up against that stuff. They need to fight that stuff, and they need to clean up their own countries and make them livable again. I will acknowledge, however, a lot of problems in the Middle East do come from Western influence. That's something not a lot of people on the right will admit, but it's something I will admit, that a lot of these countries, while Islam has not helped them, it has made them worse, and it has introduced a lot of fucked up laws and a lot of fucked up backwards ideas. I agree with that. We didn't help a whole lot when we bombed the shit out of them and kind of ruined their whole lives over their oil. We went into the Middle East a lot of the time under false pretenses, and we fucked things up for a lot of people. And it just kind of is what it is. I mean, the USA, they created Al Qaeda. They created a whole lot of these fucking groups that were bad. And the answer, obviously, to me is not destroy the USA. I love my fucking country. I love this place. And if you want to destroy it, I say you get the fuck out. But I mean, you gotta call it like you see it, and you gotta be honest. I think a lot of the issues over there do come from Western imperialism mixed with Islam, and it has just made it 10 times worse than it would have been if we had just left them alone. Not to say it would have been perfect, not to say it would have been a place that I would want to live or want to be or even care about being around. But a lot of it is the fault of big Western countries causing wars over there and taking resources. That's the fact. That's a fact. It's true. I mean, I wish it wasn't true and I could say that America has always done right by the world, but it hasn't. and it's fucked up a lot, and it's fucked up a lot of countries over there. And the Iraq War was orchestrated so Dick Cheney could make money off of oil. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. We kill our own people. We do a lot of fucked up stuff, man. It's a sick world we live in these days. Slim, for Pete's sakes, put down Christopher Reeve's legs. It's a yeah, it's not good. It's not good. But yeah, Andrew Tate
so
is right.
yeah,
It's wrong for Muslims
so
to kill
Andrew,
people.
so Andrew Tate apparently also pissed off Muslims because the whole like he showed recently some support for Israelis because of the whole and a lot of people are angry because get it the whole tension with Palestine and Israel.
I don't know what his thoughts are on that. As far as Palestine and Israel goes, I am at the point where I kind of feel like fuck both of them. I think that I don't really have anything good to say about Israel. I don't really have anything good to say about Palestine. I think that both of them are really fucked up places. I think we should just, leave it alone. I think America needs to stop sending money to places that are just having constant wars and fucked up things happen. Israel does not need our money. Palestine should not be getting our money. We need to be fixing the shit that's happening here. People might get angry and call me an isolationist, but I say that's a good thing. I am an isolationist. America should be self-sustaining. It should stay to itself. It should take care of its own people and leave the fucking foreign wars to the foreign people. Let them deal with their own shit. We don't need to be involved in any of that. Fuck them both. Fucking if Israel wants to take over Palestine, whatever. If Palestine wants to take over Israel, whatever. I mean, fuck them both. I really don't care at this point. If it were up to me, the Christians would run it again. It would be run like how it was way back in the day, but it's not. It's never going to be like that again. They're just going to constantly be killing each other. They've been doing it for fucking centuries. And fucking, yeah, Israel does a lot of fucked up stuff. They kill a lot of people. They hurt a lot of women and children. I've seen videos of Israeli soldiers doing the most evil shit ever. I mean, it's not good. But the same can be said for the fucking Hamas. The same can be said for them. They kill people, they rape them, they cut their heads off, and they fucking savagely fucking harm people. And that's wrong too. So I just feel bad for all the innocent people that are citizens of these countries that are being caught in the crossfires, man. That's where my fucking head's at. I think the Israeli people that got kidnapped and raped and killed, I feel really bad for them. The fucking people in Palestine that are just getting bombed and they're fucking just living their lives, and they've got these terrorists that are hiding behind them, and then they've got this foreign government that's fucking blowing them up. Like, it's all fucked up. Like, there's nothing good happening there. So, I mean, like, Andrew Tate having support for Israel, one, that's kind of weird since he's a Muslim. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And two, whatever. I mean, Andrew Tate's political opinions don't really mean a whole lot to me. He's some bald asshole with a weak chin. That's how I feel about it. I don't like fucking Andrew Tate's chin bothers me more than anything else about him. Like fucking, sure, I disagree with him. Sure, he says some stuff that's wrong. Sure, he does a lot of things that are wrong. And I'll agree with that. But just fucking, the man needs to do some exercises or something to make that chin muscle grow, because it's pretty sad.
Okay. Well, I will say, as a Muslim, I do stand with. So here's the thing: free Palestine from Hamas. That's all I will say. In terms of Israel, I will support Israel because let's be honest here. Israel, they have they have like legit a button where if they can, they'll blow up Palestine like this. Palestine with knives. My thing is, and this is why I support Israel, is because, again, Palestine are hiding behind their own people. They're the reason why their people are getting killed. Okay, they're the cowards. Not just that, if they had the choice, they would set off that bomb and kill Israel. They'll eliminate Israel. That's my point of view. That's why I'm going to support Israel than Palestine. And plus, I do think like Israel, like think about it. There's like how many freaking countries there are a Muslim country and they have they prove to be fucking garbage. Israel is like the only Jewish state in the world. Okay,
Right.
who fucking cares? What one Jewish state can't get? And guess what? They don't really cause problems. So I don't know what to tell you. All right, going back to the whole adolescence talk. Right, I'm gonna try to go back to my notes. I'm gonna keep it as brief as I can, and basically mention what I was going through, like just by just like live talk of like learning about the show. All right. Um. So again, okay, adolescence. What I when I was like watching it and even learning about it, I said that it's not about incels. It's just it's about the effects of men, bullying issue, and a lack of support to men. Uh, it's how it affects. Yeah, it's mentioned how it affects. People said that it's how it affects incels and dating issue, the whole stereotype issue, how men can have, how people can have a better or less better just by looks or support. But when they mentioned like a whole, the whole Jamie issue, how he was made fun of for being ugly. But again, it just doesn't like sure like that's what they're making it seem to be, or even people were thinking of. While again, that may be true in terms of Jamie's issue where why he got made fun of because all get it, he's a child that was not probably conventionally good looking to those kids, even though like what am I to judge of a 13-year-old child of how he looks? He still has a
And I
lifelong.
think a lot of that also had to do with his feeling on himself, not so much how other people felt about him.
Yeah.
Like when he was talking to the therapist, she never made any like indication that she thought he was ugly or worthless or whatever. She was just sitting there talking to him, and then he gets up and starts screaming, "You think I'm ugly? You think I'm a piece of shit? You think, and it's like, how do you know what she thinks, man? Like, you just have this complex in your head, like you hate yourself. This kid clearly hates himself, and he thinks everybody else hates him too, and that's not necessarily the case. Now, the girl that made fun of him might have hated him and treated him like shit. I don't know, because again, they were talking about how all these emojis mean things and like all this shit. I'm not a fucking kid anymore. I don't know what that stuff is. But when it comes to the therapist and all the is he ugly or whatever, I think that kid thinks he's ugly and that he thinks that other people think he's ugly, and he just kind of assumes, and that a lot of his issue was that he projects his feelings onto others. I don't know if it was necessarily that he was being made fun of for being ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. As by watching the show, learning about it, okay, the show claims that like internet treats men differently and makes men bad, etc. It referenced Andrew Tate, how he treats women, how to be a man, etc. It shows they show a clip how how want to hit Jamie, but what happened? Oh yeah, it showed they showed a clip how a kid wanted to hit Jamie for what happened with Katie, but gets angry at the teacher like, "Oh, fix the shirt." Oh, what does a woman know? It shows an imbalance of how people behave. It mentions the whole incel issue relating to the 80-20 rule, how Jamie feels like being ugly by being undesired. And again, mentioning the whole 80-20 rule with, again, like the cop's son. What's your thoughts on the 80-20 rule before I continue?
I think that it's something. I think people that think about the 80-20 rule are probably overthinking it. I think that trying to quantify people like that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense unless you're talking about the amount of money they make. Like if you're talking about like the top 20% of men financially, that would kind of make sense to me, where it's like these guys are millionaires and so they do better than people at the bottom who like have $2,000 or something. That would make sense. But I think once you start factoring in looks, you start factoring in personality and all these different little things that make a person who they are, it's kind of hard to put a number on that. Like there are, again, I'm a weird looking guy in some respects. There are women that think I'm attractive. I've been attracted to some strange looking girls. I think there's a lot more that drives a person's attraction to someone than these numbers that we try to put on it. I think that trying to quantify people is kind of incorrect. And I think that making it this mainstream thing of like 80% of women want the top 20% of guys, it's like, okay, well, I would like to know who these top 20% of guys are. I would like to see the list. I would like to know who's deciding that, because it's kind of difficult to put every single man in a box like that. I mean, every single person is so multifaceted and has so many different things about them going on, and so many different just things that make them who they are, that to try to make it like a scientific equation doesn't even really make a whole lot of sense.
All right. My view about the 80-20 rule, I can see why that's a thing, and I do even argue like, yeah, it could be true, because unfortunately, the only way you really can get successful women, and like this is where it's funny how they mention it, like it's like you have to manipulate women. While that may not be a good thing, that's how you sadly have to do things. Where women, they're like, again, they themselves will be superficial in terms of like selecting a guy because of their height and their looks or whatever. But then men, if they're not really like successful in terms of looks department, they have to compensate in terms of money and status. That's the only way that gets them through the door. But again, when you have all three of them, that's the way you can keep a girl for like the life. That's how like that girl will always be like your wife, supposedly. Because like unfortunately, when it comes to like dating to marry or dating to want to have a nice gal to have them for a long time, that's the only way you can keep them in the long run, by having those three combinations of looks, money, and status type of deal. Because that's like how like the 80-20 rule works out, where those 20% of men will only get with the types of, like, they have unlimited options basically.
Some of them, for sure. I would argue the same thing for women, though. I mean, like, it's easier for a woman to get a guy for sure. But if you look at, like, for example, my future wife, if you look at Dua Lipa, right? She has a much better chance of getting with any man that she wants when compared to Jane down the street. Just kind of how it is.
Yeah.
Looks, money, and status, sure, they play a lot of fucking that plays a lot of a fucking role in your options and all of that stuff. But I would also argue that it's kind of like what Drax says. I don't know if you've ever seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah.
There's this scene where he talks about with Mantis, where he's talking to her about how she's ugly or whatever. She's like, people don't like me because I'm ugly. And he's like, well, then you really know who's a real one, like if fucking people only like you because of your looks, your money, and your status, and they don't really care about you as a person.
Yeah.
That just gets you all these superficial people who want, it's never going to be a genuine connection. So I would argue that might even be a good thing, that these people can get all the fucking superficial people to come to them, because at the end of the day, those aren't the people that you want to be around. And if they're going to fucking flock somewhere else, good. I don't need them in my life.
I agree. Like, being ugly could be a blessing in disguise to learn who really fucks with you.
Yeah.
So like I absolutely agree. Yeah, it just it sucks that again, you'll be judged for your looks, and if you
it's not good, but it's
yeah.
I do think that people's looks, it's easy to obsess over, like the way you look and the things that are going on around you. I would argue that it's pretty easy to make yourself look better. You can, not even just working out or any of the, or like anything, but like getting a haircut can do wonders for a person. Like someone who has really long, shaggy, straggly hair can go to the barber, get it fixed up, and look 10 times better. The clothes that you wear have a big impact on that as well. If you go out looking goofy and in really ratted up clothing and you look like shit, that's going to have an effect on people. The way that if you shave your face and don't look homeless, if you wear cologne, if you fucking just do little things to make your appearance look better, and you can go from like a 6 to an 8. It's not that hard to go out and like try to do the little things to make your appearance better. I think that a lot of people's negative outlook on the way people look really does come down to just how are you presenting yourself.
Okay. All right. Going back to my notes to finish what I was going to say more. Um, yeah, the show claims like the internet treats men differently, it makes men bad, etc. Which yeah, it does, and I guess it may seem like this the internet played a big role. It didn't really show much about again about women. I guess like because again, it making it seem more about like a man issue. Then like, but again, I understand like it's again about a guy committing the murder, but
I was gonna say, like, you don't really like. It's not to say that female murderers don't exist, but it's not nearly as big of a problem.
Okay. Representative Tate, how to treat women, how to be a man, etc. It shows a clip of how Jamie wanted when the person wanted to hit Jamie. What happened? Get angry when a teacher. Yeah, okay, that whole imbalance. 80-20 rule. The thought of the girl may like him and realizing why got murdered due to her apparently bullying him, insulting him, calling him an incel. The big problem the big problem basically of the movie also or the show is like the incel terms being used overused, calling people incel, etc. That's what led to like the whole issues, like because who the hell wants to be an incel, right? Or known as an incel that may like have spiked his anger. Um, Stereotypes may play a big role. Like Jamie liked. So basically, how this show also mentioned how Jamie liked art, right? But it's viewed normally as feminine, like a feminine trait, not as masculine as like wanting to play a sport, which led to him like and eventually playing a sport, right? Um, it's learned that parents have a temper issue, especially the father. Um, and how they treated Jamie. That's like again like the father having a temper, and that may inspire to like Jamie to believe like, hey, he gotta be aggressive all the time, and that's apparently mean being a man. Um, the struggle how not teaching Jamie like how to handle temper and how to explain to him that what's from right and wrong may have like again played a role of not of what to be what to what was happened. Um, yeah, as a psychologist investigating Jamie, like basically discussed it. Jamie might like her. Basically, like they're discussing like the whole like basically how his attitude and just couldn't bear of like seeing the sandwich. Like that's kind of like that whole little issue. But yeah, this show like this like it issues of fatherhood, masculinity, father issue, parenthood, manosphere, red pill type of stuff. That's what it kind of picked up on. But if you really think about it, this show was just more so about bullying, about the bullying issue. But again, how the internet could affect your brain. Um, yeah, and because like I said, like because Jamie was a social reject, not a traditional masculine boy, it set him apart, viewed as a maybe like from his peers that why he got bullied and to do what he did because he was not like a conventionally attractive supposed dude, even though like that's stupid to talk about at the age of 13. But again, I guess because compared to his peers, that's a problem and that led him to like think that way and also like kind of like have an idea that he's not good enough and again like basically need to do what he did, and it doesn't help like because of the lack of I guess support and also just growing up with like having that computer that and not having like learning the idea of, like what's right and wrong, how to handle certain things, how to also handle rejection or not even being told of how to like basically this also goes back to like maybe like it's time to actually have parents have to talk with their kids. Maybe it's important to have the talk with their kids, right? And that would lead to like to because that's what I learned. I never had to talk with my parents, and we know a mutual friend of ours didn't have to talk with their parents. That could be an issue. Maybe it's time that we actually have to talk with our parents again. We have to have those uncomfortable conversations. We also have to have that conversation where like, hey, you like a girl, a son? Well, I'm going to tell you this: what if it doesn't work out, it doesn't. If it works out, it doesn't work out. It's okay. How to handle rejection, how to handle certain things, how to basically behave. We have to also have those conversations,
Right.
especially when these kids are going to high school. It's very important. Um, Again, like we already talked about, like based on my notes, like how this show kind of felt like kind of the idea of attacking conservatism, like men who are conservative, like this, making it seem like like kind of like all masculinity is toxic type of deal. That's what I kind of got off with the show. um but yeah, in the end of the day, um like I think like just all I have to say, uh, that needs to just really be said is that it seems like the world acts like traditional stereotypes is what messed up the world. But you treat like obviously you shouldn't treat women like objects. I'm not trying to say that or whatever. Or yet it's like, don't you treat men like objects at times too? Like it's like you're shitting on men. So, like men get shit on a bunch of times, and it's like we're no wonder, like with the lack of support for men, it's no wonder why you have a lot of people becoming incels, or men are struggling, all that kind of shit. And that's why they're like, you have these men gravitate to Andrew Tate. So that's why I basically said to myself, and again, like it does seem like, in my opinion, like because of like the lack of traditional stereotypes, or lack of traditional attributes, like how basically having traditional duties, that kind of like, with the lack of that kind of like led to like the whole decrease of traditional men, traditional women, or just basically a lot of this shit with incels, or just basically the whole issue of like the world would be so much better if, I guess, like we had more of those traditional values handled.
Yeah. The
uh,
problem, the reason all of this is a problem is these are all symptoms. Feminism, MGTOW, being an incel, all of that stuff is one. All of these are just giant symptoms of one big problem, and that big problem is our country moved away from God. The country moved away from
I agree.
Christianity. It stopped being a Christian country. It stopped being a godly country, and it moved into atheism, hedonism, sex, all of these disgusting things that we've done. And if we move back to Christianity, if we move back to tradition, then a lot of these problems will disappear. We'll know how to treat women correctly. We'll know how to treat men correctly. Men and women will fill the proper gender roles that they need to be a part of, and we can have our lives operating properly again. But all of this is just people fighting over bullshit and not realizing what the actual answer is. And the actual answer is to go to church and live your life like a normal fucking human being, and not like some weird hedonist that needs to constantly come and get off and fuck all the time and beat people up and scream and argue and treat people like they're nothing. That's what the problem is. We've moved away from God. And if we move closer to Him and we get back to where we need to be, then this country will succeed. But if we keep moving as far away from Him as we are, we keep doing all this crazy fucking shit, then we will never fucking recover from this. We'll constantly be fighting. We might it's incels versus feminists right now. 10 years from now, it might be something completely fucking different. It might not be men and women. It'll be moving into fucking something else. We'll find something else to fight about because we don't have God in our lives. And if we get Him back in our lives, then we'll be good again. That's how I kind of feel about all of this society stuff. I think that we are arguing over the wrong thing, that it's all just moving away from the actual thing that we need. And once we do that, guys like Andrew Tate won't matter anymore. Feminists and all of these fucking man-hating women, they won't matter anymore either. It'll all be in the past, and we can just get back to being humans again. And that's what the country needs. It's just it's too fucked up. And I mean, like, you could argue that that's Christian nationalism. I wouldn't say that. I think that's just being a fucking normal person. I don't think that we should have the Bible in the law or whatever. I don't think that every law that we have should be based on something in the Bible. However, the fact that we've moved so far away from it has fucked our country and our society and the West and everything.
Yeah.
And until we realize what we've done, we'll never get back to where we were.
That's actually something I wrote like as a solution that we should have done. Like that's actually something that I wrote, and that's something I wanted to say, and you knocked it out of the park. It does feel like because the world nowadays we have like too much sex in television, we have too much of like again our society kind of feels like it feels like more a lot of the new Illuminati type of ideology is happening, is taking over the world, and it's like with lack of a religion, the lack of God is why we are kind of like lack of belief, lack of values and interests, and again just especially again with the lack of just basically serving like what's God's plan, you know, the whole idea of believing in God, being godly, being a good person. That's what's kind of ruined the world. It does seem like again, it's like the devil. It has taken over the world, and we gotta stop it. So I agree. Yeah, I do think it's a lot of devil worshiping, lack of God. This again, LGBT. I'm not trying to make it like anti-gay shit or hating on gays, but just feel like again what's not God's plan of like LGBT shit like has kind of ruined the world too.
It wouldn't go so far. My thing is, like, I'm not even saying fuck gay people or whatever. Like, whatever. You live your life, I live my life, and they don't have to fucking coincide or do anything. Like, I'm not trying to go out of my way to go to a gay pride parade. I don't care. But if we hadn't moved away from God, this whole trans issue and transing the kids and all of that stuff wouldn't be an issue. We wouldn't even be thinking about doing that shit. But we've moved so far away from religion that we're like, okay, well, what if gender doesn't matter? What if all of this stuff is just something that we can say is subjective and we can put our own feelings on it and move it in the way that we want it? And it's fucked everything up. So, that's all it is.
And you want to have people like wondering what's masculine. You want to also have people wondering, yeah. You want to have people wondering what's masculine or what's feminine. You know what? Or like you wouldn't even have like people wondering what kind of gender they are. Like that's the shit is. I think that's also why you have this whole toxic masculinity talk in the first place.
It's 100% it.
One thing I want to say, but again, yeah, I do. If you notice, also, yeah, if you notice like the LGBT shit, if you notice these people from the like again, if you've seen these gay pride parades, if you've seen like again like June whenever they do the gay pride parades or whatever, like how unethical these people are, like how disgusting they act, in the streets. It's like that's not good. That's not godly.
I agree. I'm not a fan of that. I don't go do those things. That's not really in my wheelhouse.
Nope.
It ain't me, babe.
Emery.
No. Yeah, I don't go to gay pride parades.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I was gonna say. One thing I forgot to mention is like this kind of also reminded me of back to that Gillette commercial. Like you remember the Gillette commercial?
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that whole talk of toxic masculinity and all that kind of shit. So it's like it brought back. But my solution is basically what you already said earlier, and I totally agreed. Is again the restrict of social media for kids. Don't give kids cell phones till like high school.
And even then, say a high schooler, you should highly monitor what they're looking at.
Highly monitor again. Have parents actually monitor what the fuck they're doing, what the kids are doing. Actually know what the fuck your kids are doing. May actually be part of the kids' lives. Okay.
Yep.
Again, there's nothing much to say. What you said earlier, the solution of what should be done is basically the same thing I said. But again, you knocked it apart by memory for what you said. It was again monitor the kids. There's no reason that you should not be monitoring the kids, because maybe if you didn't, then we wouldn't have freaking terrorist attacks, mass murders. We wouldn't have all this stupid shit, school shootings, whatever the case it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get it.
I get it.
But it's 11:30. I have work tomorrow. I have to go. Have a good night.
Yeah. Let's end it, man. This was a great episode. great topic. It was great. Definitely good on this show, Adolescence, to give us something to talk about. God bless Emery for what he said. But again, at the end of the day, definitely the internet has played a role in, unfortunately, not just the world, dating included, and that's, we gotta definitely take care of the world. Obviously the internet is a blessing, but it's all about, with great power comes great responsibility, right? And while I met Emery through the internet, and we all are watching this thanks to the internet, it's just we gotta know how to use it properly. Like, this has the combined knowledge known to man, and is in your fucking pocket, and all you watch is fucking watch porn on it. Less porn the better. Less seeing stupid shit the better. Actually do shit productive with the help of the internet, but also, like, again, go out in the world and enjoy life. That's all I'm gonna say. Great topic to talk about today. Till next time, peace. Yeah, bye. See you in the next episode of Modern Romance.